This podcast is part of the Pull Up a Chair podcast network. Let's build community through connection, conversation, and collaboration.
I never wanna get used to the sound you whispering in my ear.
Cringe With Me brings you all the best cringy, funny, and relatable content you could ask for. From the best of Reddit to the most outrageous advice columns, Ryan and V have a grand story to tell you. Check us out every Wednesday, your favorite podcast directory, and by the end, you'll cringe with me. Okay, words. Alright guys, welcome back. It's been a minute since we've done an advice column. This one is Dear Abby, like the OG of advice columns.
I grew up hearing about this one.
Yeah, okay. This one is titled Mother Dislikes Son for His Resemblance to Her Brother.
Okay, I love where we're starting. Let's go.
Dear Abby, my 25-year-old son is a single father of 3 boys, 6, 4, and almost 3. They have been living with me, my youngest, and my husband in a 2-bedroom house for a while now, and I'm not happy with my life.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
I enjoy my grandkids, but I don't enjoy my son. He looks and acts a lot like my older brother, who I had never liked because he was mean and bullied me even as an adult. What can I say or do to get my son and his kids out of the house? And how do I deal with my feelings towards him moving forward? I love him, but I don't like him. Over it in New Mexico.
Wow.
I read that and it just broke my heart, honestly.
I have some questions. Like, what does his resemblance to your older brother have to do with anything? Like, I can get not liking him because he's a bully or picks on you or whatever. What does it have to do with your brother?
Well, I think...
Like, is it just context for why you don't like bullying, which nobody likes?
Yeah, nobody likes a bully except for bullies. I can't tell if it's like personality or like actual visible looks, because my niece looks like a tiny mini me. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's a situation like that where her son looks like a tiny mini version of the uncle.
Yeah, it's almost like it's evoking some kind of trauma or something. Like,
yeah.
It's like, I have all these traumatic memories of my brother being an asshole and picking on me, and now my son is doing this, and it just like I could see being like kind of triggered by that, right? Like having that moment of being like, ugh, okay, this is too much like a thing I've experienced that was awful.
But like, where's the baby mama is my other question.
That is a good question.
That's 3 whole ass kids.
Yeah. And they're not even very old. So like the last one, I mean, like that person
3.
had to be in his life like within the last 3 years. So
yeah.
What's going on there?
So they're in a 2-bedroom house. So it's the parents, their youngest child, the son, and his 3 kids. That's a lot.
Wait, and how old is the youngest? So like,
it wasn't said.
So one of her children is still living with her.
Yeah.
And then the oldest one is 25, and his 3 kids.
Well, we don't know if he's the oldest. We don't know how many kids that she has.
You're right, we don't know that. Oh, okay. Cool. Sounds like she has a lot of kids.
Yeah, and it sounds like she's over it in New Mexico.
It sounds like she's over it in New Mexico. Which, it's a place to be over things.
Yeah. All right, so let's hear what Dear Miss Abby had to say, which is like my favorite part of the advice columns.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Dear Over It. If the only thing you have against your son is his strong physical resemblance to your brother, whom you dislike for good reason, you're being unfair to him. However, this is your home, and if the conditions are no longer pleasant for you, you have the right to change them. Give your son a reasonable deadline to find another living arrangement without alienating him, if at all possible. Your living conditions are crowded right now, so your reason there is valid.
Yeah, I mean, I think that response is pretty correct. Like, yeah, if you just dislike him because he resembles someone you dislike, that is unfair. That's kind of a shitty thing to do.
Yeah.
But you have what, 6 people living in a 2-bedroom, no, 7 people living in a 2-bedroom house. That's pretty bad. That's rough. I would be like, yeah, I think it's reasonable to set a deadline and say, hey, you got to be out because we can't live like this anymore.
How did it get to this point is my question that I keep circling back to.
My guess is there was a separation between him and the mother of those 3 children that led to him not being in a financial place where he could afford a house, I'm guessing. Single dad, 3 kids. Money's definitely going to be tight.
And he looks like his uncle, so he's unloved.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that this was a temporary solution, a situation that became indefinite, right? It's you can stay with me till you get on your feet. And it's like, when is that going to happen? Is there any sort of discussion? I don't know, right? This is the kind of thing where it's like, why people recommend, it's like, hey, if you're going to help someone out with this kind of thing, you have to set a deadline up front. You're like, yeah, you can live with me for 6 months while you figure out your next situation and get a house, get somewhere to stay.
But can you imagine the conversation where she's like, I don't like you. I don't like your face. You look like your uncle.
Man, I really hope she hasn't had that conversation with him, because I would just be like confused and very upset with that. That's not a feeling I want to experience.
It's a face that not even a mother can love.
Or a sister in this case.
Which is exactly how I will title this.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
A face not even a mother could love. I feel it. This evokes too many negative things. It's like, I don't know. I'm a child of divorced parents, right? Like, that was the thing. And I know that there were times my mom would be like, oh, sometimes you make expressions or whatever that are just like your father. You look just like him when you do certain things or say things in certain ways. And I remember even as a kid where my mom wasn't saying it in a derogatory or mean way, being like, is that a good thing? I don't know how to feel about that. I have anxiety about the fact that I am doing things that look like the person that you divorced, that is, a troublesome person in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So straight out coming out with, you look like my brother who I fucking hate, and this bothers me. I feel like that's something you internalize really easily in a negative way.
And the last line of her thing was, I love my son, but I don't like him.
Okay, but I feel like that's a fairly common sentiment towards family. A lot of people are like, I love my family, but I don't like them. I have family that I have loved and disliked. Now I don't have to love them anymore, but that was definitely a phase. Man,
it just sucks. I know you and I talked about it off air a little bit, but I'm going through some family drama and I'm like, do I really want to keep talking to these people?
Yeah, it's funny. We obviously come from very different situations with that, because in my family, and this is something I'm actually at odds with a lot. This is a conversation that comes up with my partner. It's come up with some of my friends where I'm like, my family has a habit of we just cut people out when we're done. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna be difficult or cause problems or do this stuff, you're out. We don't need you in our lives. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I really only have I don't know, 4 or 5 people that I really consider family that I spend time with. And the rest of my family I don't talk to. I don't know them, and I don't have any interest in knowing them.
Man, I'm just about at that point because of reasons beyond my control. But I should have done it a lot earlier, because the things out of my control, they're doing to somebody else. Not even to me personally, but I am taking it so personal.
Well, to be fair, people should be held accountable to the things they do, even to other people.
Yeah.
One of the things that blows my mind as far as people's behavior is when someone does something awful and then other people are like, well, they didn't do it to me, so I guess I'm not going to have a reaction to this. That doesn't... Who it happened to isn't even relevant, right?
It's the fact that they did it.
Yeah, if someone is capable of being physically abusive or, breaking consent boundaries or things like that. Those are the kind of things where I'm like, if I know you're a person who does this, I don't need you in my life. It doesn't matter if you did it to me. This is not acceptable behavior. It's not acceptable regardless of who you did it to.
Yeah, no, I have physical scars from these people, and I was like, it's fine. It was just me. But they're doing something not even physically scarring to somebody else, and I'm like, I don't know if I can deal with y'all fuckers anymore.
I think that's a fairly normal human reaction, to come to someone else's defense over your own.
Yeah.
Especially for those of us who have been the victims of abuse and trauma while growing up, is often you can internalize that and feel like you deserve bad things. But when it happens to other people, that's not okay.
You know, this is supposed to be the fun podcast.
I know. I'm getting all
emotional.
sad and moody about it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, how about this? We're going to go take another shot. And we're going to record next week's episode. And it's going to be on a much lighter note because this got a little deeper.
It's got a little real.
Yeah, it's got a little too real. It's a little like,
That's the cringiness of this episode is how real we got with it.
Ooh. All right, I'm definitely not winning this month. At this rate, I'm not winning. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Goodbye.
Connect with us. Follow us on social media. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram at Cringe With Me. Everything is linked in the description of this podcast. Cringe With Me podcast is a production of Pull Up the Chair Foundation. All opinions in this podcast belong to the host and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Pull Up a Chair podcast network.
I never wanna get used to the sound you whispering in my ear.
Hello, I am Patrick.
And I'm Andrew. And I'm Christian.
And I'm Allie.
And we are Rad Theater, a podcast where a bunch of friends play role-playing games and share a single brain cell, and the GM doesn't always have it. Oh, and it's theater spelled the correct way, Theatre.